A frozen girl, a lonely barn, and a secret so shocking it could destroy them both. The danger lurking outside was nothing compared to what lay hidden in her past. Watch until the end to witness betrayal, courage, and a revelation that will leave you speechless. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty plains of the Wild West, a land both beautiful and brutal. Silas McCallister, a rugged farmer with calloused hands and a heart weary from toil, trudged back to his barn after a long day of harvesting. The air was thick with the scent of earth and sweat, the sound of cicadas buzzing like a distant chant. But as he neared the barn, a flicker of movement caught his eye, a flash of white against the ochre landscape. Curiosity piqued, Silas approached cautiously, his heart pounding with a mix of trepidation and hope. As he rounded the corner, he stumbled upon a sight that stopped him in his tracks. A girl, her skin pale as snow, lay sprawled on the ground. She was unmoving, her raven-black hair fanned out like a dark halo around her head. A chill crept up his spine as he knelt beside her, his breath hitching in his throat. The world around him faded, leaving only the warmth of his concern for this stranger. He took a frozen girl into his barn, he thought, but when she woke up, nothing was the same. He didn't know why he was drawn to her, why his heart ached for a girl he had never seen before. Perhaps it was the way the light caught the delicate features of her face, or maybe it was the way she seemed so out of place in this harsh environment. Silas gently shook her shoulder, hoping against hope that she was merely unconscious and not lost to the cold grip of death. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing a deep, stormy blue that mirrored the vast sky above. For a moment, confusion painted her features, but then recognition dawned. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the whispering wind. The sound sent a shiver through Silas, igniting a flicker of hope within him. "You're safe now," he assured her, his voice rough like gravel. "I'll take care of you." He lifted her gently, cradling her against his chest, feeling the warmth of her body seep into his worn shirt. He carried her into the barn, its wooden beams offering a semblance of shelter from the unforgiving world outside. As he laid her on a bed of hay, Silas couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was destined. He was a man who had seen much loss in his life, his wife taken by a fever, and his crops withered by drought. Each day felt like a battle against the elements, against the harshness of the land. But here, in this moment, with this girl, he felt a flicker of hope, a chance to protect, to nurture, to redeem the pain that had become a constant companion. The barn was dimly lit, shafts of sunlight breaking through the cracks in the wood, illuminating the dust that danced in the air. Silas hurried to fetch a blanket, wrapping it around her trembling form. He watched as she shivered, her body still cold from whatever ordeal had brought her to this desolate place. The sight tugged at his heart, igniting a fierce protectiveness within him. Days turned into weeks as the seasons shifted, and Silas tended to the girl, whom he learned was named Clara. She was a mystery wrapped in layers of pain and resilience, her laughter a rare melody that echoed through the barn. But as she regained her strength, Silas began to notice the shadows that lingered in her eyes, shadows that spoke of a past she was reluctant to share. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, Silas found Clara sitting in the barn, her gaze lost in the distance. He approached her, the weight of unspoken words heavy between them. "You can tell me, you know," he encouraged gently, his voice low and steady. Clara turned to him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and fear. "I was running from something," she confessed, her voice trembling. "They wanted to take me. I didn't want to go." Tears glistened in her eyes, and Silas felt a surge of anger rise within him, anger at the world, at the cruelty that had forced her into hiding. "Whatever it is, you're safe here," he promised, his voice wrapping around her like a warm embrace. "I won't let anyone take you." He meant it with every fiber of his being, and in that moment, a bond formed between them, one forged in shared pain and unyielding compassion. But the peace that enveloped their makeshift sanctuary was not destined to last. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of a girl gone missing from a nearby settlement, a girl who bore a striking resemblance to Clara. Silas had heard the stories, tales of a ruthless gang that preyed on the vulnerable, using fear as their weapon. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he realized that the very danger Clara had fled from was closing in, like a storm on the horizon. One fateful night, as the moon hung low and full, casting an eerie glow over the landscape, Silas heard the sound of hooves heavy and relentless approaching the barn. His heart raced as he moved to the door, peering into the darkness beyond. Shadows loomed, figures clad in leather and dust, their faces obscured by the night. They had come for Clara. Silas's mind raced, torn between the instinct to protect and the fear of what might happen if he confronted them. He glanced back at Clara, who stood wide-eyed, her breath coming in quick gasps. In that moment, he knew he had to make a choice that would alter the course of their lives forever. "Stay here," he whispered fiercely, gripping her shoulder. But Clara shook her head, determination flaring in her eyes. "I won't hide anymore," she declared, her voice steady. The strength in her words ignited a fire within Silas, and together they stood, ready to face whatever darkness awaited them. As the barn door swung open, the wind howled, carrying with it the promise of danger and hope intertwined. They would fight for their freedom, their lives, and in doing so, they would discover the true meaning of sacrifice, compassion, and the unexpected rewards that come from standing against the tide of cruelty. Little did they know, the choices they made that night would ripple through the fabric of their lives, reshaping their destinies, and illuminating the path toward redemption. The wind howled through the cracks of the barn, carrying with it whispers of the night and the promise of a storm. Silas stood at the entrance, his heart thundering in his chest, an echo of the hoofbeats approaching from the dusk. Shadows stretched across the ground, darkened by the encroaching clouds that rolled over the horizon like a predatory beast, stalking its prey. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders, a burden he had grown accustomed to. But tonight, it felt heavier than ever. Clara's voice broke through his reverie, soft yet firm, like the first rays of dawn piercing through a lingering fog. She stepped out from the dim recesses of the barn, her pale skin illuminated by the faint glow of the lantern he had lit earlier. Her raven-black hair framed her face, fanning out like a dark halo, contrasting sharply with the warm, golden light that flickered around them. The sight sent a shiver through him, not from fear, but from an undeniable sense of connection, a tether that pulled him toward her. "Stay inside," he urged, though the words felt inadequate, like trying to hold back the tide with a single hand. The urgency of the moment clawed at him, and he fought against the instinct to shield her with his body. "It's not safe." Clara's deep-set green eyes searched his, a storm of emotions swirling within their depths. "I can't hide forever, Silas." Not from them. She took a step closer, the scent of wildflowers clinging to her, mingling with the earthy aroma of freshly hay and the faint, musty scent of the barn's worn wooden beams. "I need to face this with you." The sincerity in her voice cut through the tension, and Silas felt the tightness in his chest begin to loosen. He had grown weary of solitude, the silence of the land echoing his own fears and regrets. Clara was a flicker of light in his shadowed life, a spark that ignited something he thought long extinguished. But the danger looming outside threatened to snuff that flame out before it even had a chance to grow. "I can't lose you too," he whispered, the words escaping before he could cage them. He thought of the ghosts that haunted him, his wife, the laughter of children that never echoed through these walls, memories that clung to him like thorns. "Every time I think of the gang, I see what they do to people like us." Clara stepped forward, her hand brushing against his arm, a touch that sent warmth flooding through him. "Then we fight together. But running away, it will only prolong the inevitable." Her voice was steady, steel wrapped in silk. She had found her strength, and in that moment, Silas realized he was no longer just protecting a fragile girl. He was standing beside a woman who had faced her demons and emerged with a fire in her heart. As the hoofbeats drew nearer, Silas cast a glance back toward the darkness outside. The wind carried the laughter of men, a cruel, mocking sound that sent a chill racing down his spine. He could almost see them, a band of marauders, the very specters of danger that had haunted every lonely night since Clara had stumbled into his life. "Then we face them," he said, the weight of his decision settling over him like a cloak. "But we do it on our terms." Silas gathered the few weapons he had stashed in the barn, an old rifle, a pistol, and a handful of cartridges that felt like a meager defense against the storm brewing outside. Clara watched him with focused intent, her expression a mix of determination and fear, a reflection of the battle raging within her. "Do you know how to use that?" she asked, nodding toward the rifle as he loaded it with practiced efficiency. "I've had my share of lessons," he replied, the memories flooding back like a distant echo. His father had insisted on teaching him, grounding the boy in the harsh realities of survival. But I'd rather not use it. Clara tightened her jaw, a flicker of something fierce igniting in her gaze. Then let's make sure we don't have to. As the barn creaked ominously around them, Silas took a deep breath, inhaling the mixture of hay and dust, the scent of earth mingling with the urgency of the moment. He could feel the pulse of the night quickening, the air thick with tension, a storm brewing not just in the skies, but in their hearts as well. Stay close, he commanded, his voice a low rumble. We'll use the barn as our shield. If they come in here, we'll have the advantage of surprise. Clara nodded, her resolve hardening like the steel of a blade. With a quick glance toward the door, she moved to position herself behind a stack of hay bales, her movements fluid and graceful. Silas felt a swell of pride mixed with anxiety as he watched her prepare, recognizing the spirit of a survivor emerging from within her. The hooves thudded closer, a rhythmic drumbeat of danger, and Silas steadied himself, gripping the rifle tightly, his knuckles turning white. He could hear the low murmur of voices, the men laughing and recounting tales of their conquests, their bravado echoing in the night. Each word was a knife, cutting deeper into his resolve, igniting a fire of protectiveness that surged through him like wildfire. Don't show yourself until I say, he whispered to Clara, who nodded, her eyes fierce and focused. They shared a moment of understanding, a bond, forged in the crucible of fear and hope. Then the door burst open, and a gust of wind swept through the barn, carrying with it the promise of chaos. Silas braced himself as three figures stepped inside, their silhouettes framed by the dim light of the fading day. The gang members were a ragged bunch, dressed in a motley collection of leather and dust, their faces shadowed but their intentions clear. They were here for Clara. Look what we have here, one of them sneered, his eyes glinting like a predator's. The little bird that flew too far from her nest. Silas's heart slammed against his ribcage, a primal instinct taking hold. He raised the rifle, aiming at the intruder with steady hands. You'll leave her alone, he growled, his voice low and steady, a challenge echoing against the walls of the barn. The man laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. And what will you do if we don't? You're just a lonely farmer playing at hero. The other two men shifted, positioning themselves to flank Silas, their eyes hungry for the thrill of violence. But Clara's voice pierced through the tension, stronger than he had ever heard it. You don't know what you're dealing with. The gang members froze, their expressions shifting from amusement to confusion. Silas took advantage of the moment, his grip tightening on the rifle. You don't want this fight, he warned, aiming directly at the leader. Get out now while you still can. Or what? The man taunted, stepping closer, a smirk dancing across his lips. You'll shoot me. You're just a farmer, and she's just a girl. What have you got to lose? In that instant, Clara stepped forward, her presence a beacon of defiance. You have no idea what I've faced, she declared, her voice rising above the tension, filling the barn with an unexpected strength. You think you can intimidate me? I've fought for my life, and I won't back down now. The gang members exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Silas felt a surge of admiration for Clara, her courage igniting something within him. This was the girl he had brought into his barn, and she was ready to fight, ready to reclaim her story. Leave now, Silas warned again, his voice a low rumble, or you'll find out just how dangerous we can be. The leader hesitated, the bravado faltering as he took in the resolve etched on their faces. But the glint of greed still shone in his eyes, a remnant of the darkness that drove men to violence. We'll be back, he spat, retreating with his companions, the sound of their boots echoing through the barn as they exited. As the door slammed shut behind them, silence enveloped the space, broken only by the heavy breathing of Silas and Clara. The adrenaline coursed through his veins, and he felt the weight of the moment settle upon them both. They had faced the darkness together, and for the first time in a long while, Silas felt a flicker of hope. Are you all right? He asked, lowering the rifle and turning to Clara, who stood with her chin held high, defiance mingling with relief. I am now, she replied, her voice steady, though he could see the tremor in her hands. Thank you for believing in me. Silas stepped closer, the space between them filled with unspoken words, and he realized, in that moment, that they had forged a bond that could withstand the fiercest storms. The past loomed like a shadow, but together, they could face whatever lay ahead. As the night deepened, Silas and Clara found comfort in the quiet of the barn, the chaos of the outside world fading into the background. They sat side by side, the warmth of shared determination enveloping them like a blanket, the first hints of dawn whispering promises of a new beginning. In that moment, Silas understood. They were no longer just two lost souls wandering through the dark. They were allies, warriors in their own right, ready to confront whatever fate had in store. The Wild West was a land of peril, but for the first time, Silas felt the pulse of hope beat steadily in his chest, a rhythm that matched the strength he saw reflected in Clara's eyes. Together, they would carve their own path in this unforgiving world. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting a silvery glow over the expanse of Silas McCallister's land. Shadows danced like phantoms in the corners of the barn, where the scent of hay mingled with the earthy aroma of wood and the lingering warmth of the horses. Silas stood near the door, his heart thrumming with the aftermath of their confrontation. Clara leaned against a wooden post, her breath coming in soft, measured puffs, still shaken but emboldened by the moment they had just shared. "Do you think they'll come back?" Clara's voice trembled slightly, cutting through the stillness of the night. Silas turned to face her, his rugged features softened by concern. "They might, but we've shown them we won't back down." That carries weight. He stepped closer, feeling the warmth radiating from her, a stark contrast to the chill that had seeped into his bones ever since he had found her. "You stood up to them, Clara. You were brave." Her eyes sparkled like the stars above, reflecting both gratitude and a glimmer of fear. "I didn't feel brave. It was like I was watching myself from the outside. I just knew I had to do something." She tucked a strand of her raven-black hair behind her ear, the movement delicate, yet filled with uncharacteristic determination. "I don't want to run anymore, Silas. I want to fight." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of their implications. Silas nodded, a slow smile breaking through the creases of his weathered face. "Then we'll fight together." The resolve in his voice surprised even him, but it felt right. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of purpose stirring within him, igniting a fire that had long been dormant. The barn creaked and settled around them, the sounds a reminder of the life that pulsed beneath its rustic exterior. Silas thought of the times he had spent in solitude, haunted by memories of his past, a past that had taken so much from him. Clara's presence felt like a balm to those old wounds, a promise of a new chapter yet to be written. As night deepened, Silas pulled a heavy blanket from the loft and spread it on the floor, motioning for Clara to sit. "We'll need our strength if we're going to face whatever's out there. Rest for a while. I'll keep watch." He settled against the wall, his gaze fixed on the door, the moonlight spilling across the floor like liquid silver. Clara hesitated, glancing at the blanket before lowering herself onto it. "What if they come before dawn?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then we'll be ready," Silas replied, his tone firm. "I won't let anything happen to you." As Clara closed her eyes, Silas's thoughts drifted to the gang that had invaded their haven. He had heard the whispers of their brutality, tales that echoed through the saloons and town squares. They were men who thrived on fear and chaos, their very existence a blight on the land. And now, they had set their sights on Clara. Silas's jaw tightened at the thought, a flicker of anger igniting within him. He knew he would do whatever it took to protect her. The warmth of her presence, the way her laughter echoed like music in his ears, had rekindled a spark of hope in his otherwise weary heart. He had to believe that there was a way to keep her safe. The night wore on, silence punctuated only by the rustle of the wind outside, and the soft breathing of Clara as she drifted into a restless sleep. Silas's thoughts turned inward, tracing the contours of his grief and loss. His wife, Mary, who had once filled their home with laughter and light. The memories were bittersweet, a reminder of all he had sacrificed, but now they felt different, tinged with the promise of new beginnings. Clara was not a replacement, but rather a chance to heal, to find solace in companionship once more. As the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Silas felt a shift in the air. With the sun rising, came the realization that they could no longer remain in hiding. They needed a plan, something more than mere defense, against the gang that lurked in the shadows. "Clara," he called softly, nudging her shoulder gently. "It's time to wake up." She stirred, blinking against the light, confusion washing over her features, before she remembered where she was. "Did they come back?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. "No, but we can't stay here for long. We need to figure out what to do next." Silas offered her a hand, helping her to her feet. We can't let fear dictate our lives. We need to take the fight to them. Clara's gaze sharpened, the remnants of sleep fading as determination took root. What do you have in mind? Silas stepped outside, gesturing for her to follow. The morning air was crisp, invigorating enough to clear the fog of uncertainty that had been hanging over them. The barn door swung open, revealing the sprawling landscape that lay before them, dusty plains stretching into the distance, the sun rising like a fiery promise of a new day. I've got a few things we can use, Silas said, his voice steady as he surveyed their surroundings. And we need to gather supplies. If they're coming for you, we need to be ready. We can set traps around the barn, maybe even use some noise to draw them away. Clara nodded, her expression resolute. I can help. I know a few tricks. Her confidence surged, igniting a spark of excitement in the I used to live in a place where we had to defend ourselves from raiders. I can set snares and create diversion. Silas's heart swelled with admiration. You're full of surprises, aren't you? He teased lightly, though he felt the weight of her past pressing against them. Let's get to work then. They spent the morning gathering supplies from the barn, coils of rope, old cans, and anything they could use to create distractions. Clara's hands moved deftly, her fingers nimble, as she crafted makeshift traps and diversions, her eyes sparkling with purpose. Silas watched her, captivated by the transformation in her demeanor. The girl who had once been frozen in fear was now a force of nature, and it filled him with hope. As they worked, the sun climbed higher in the sky, warming their backs and chasing away the chill of the previous night. Laughter bubbled between them, the sound rich and full, weaving a bond that transcended their circumstances. In those moments, the shadows of the past felt a little less daunting, and the weight of uncertainty began to lift. But as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the barn, Silas felt a familiar unease settle in the pit of his stomach. The gang was out there, their presence looming like a storm cloud on the horizon. He could sense their determination, a dark energy that seeped into the very ground they stood upon. We need to finish up before nightfall, Silas said, his voice firm. Once the sun goes down, we'll be at a disadvantage. Clara nodded, her expression serious, as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. What if they come before we're ready? Then we face them together, Silas replied, the conviction in his voice unwavering. I won't let them take you. As the last rays of sunlight faded, they stood side by side, their makeshift defenses in place. Silas felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him, an amalgamation of fear and determination that electrified the air around them. The barn, once a sanctuary from the world, had become a battleground, a place where they would fight for their freedom. As darkness enveloped the land, Silas and Clara took their positions, hearts pounding in unison. Every creak of the barn echoed like a war drum, a reminder of the impending confrontation. And as the first sound of hooves approached in the distance, Silas's grip tightened around the makeshift weapon in his hands. Whatever happens, we stick together, he whispered, his voice steady, but filled with an urgency that underscored their reality. Clara met his gaze, her eyes fierce and unyielding. Together, and in that moment, they were no longer just a weary farmer and a frozen girl. They were allies, warriors ready to face the darkness head-on. The Wild West had a way of testing those who dared to stand against it, but Silas and Clara were ready to fight for each other, for their freedom, and for the hope that flickered like a candle in the vastness of the night.